It was a regular Friday night, and I was sitting on my couch, watching the playoff basketball game. I had just ordered pizza, finally feeling that sense of peace I had been chasing for 3 months. My phone kept buzzing on the coffee table, but I did not even glance at it. I had blocked over 20 numbers in the past 3 months. I knew exactly who was trying to reach me. Then came the pounding on my front door. That was not the pizza delivery guy. I heard the screaming from outside voices I recognized all too well. I knew this day would come. I just did not expect them all at once. Before we get into what happened that night, drop a comment and let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what you are about to hear is going to show you exactly why sometimes walking away is the only option. Trust me, you will want to hear how this whole mess unfolded and how I turned the tables on people who thought they could destroy me. I met Sarah 5 years ago at a tech conference in Austin, Texas. She was working marketing for a startup, and I was there representing my software engineering firm. She had blonde hair, blue eyes, and this energy that just pulled people in. We hit it off immediately. 2 years of dating led to a small but warm wedding 3 years ago. About 100 guests showed up to celebrate with us. We bought a 2-story house in Portland, Oregon, with a small yard and a garden Sarah said she would tend to, but never did. I was making good money as a software engineer at a major tech company. Sarah worked remotely, and while her income was not as high as mine, we were comfortable. We traveled twice a year, usually to California, or maybe down to Mexico for a beach getaway. But there was always something hovering over us: her family. Sarah was the youngest of 3 kids. Her 2 older brothers, David and Thomas, were a handful. David was 37, worked construction, and had this aggressive edge to him. Thomas was 35, unemployed most of the time, and had a serious drinking problem. Their mother, Patricia, was the kind of woman who thought her kids could do no wrong. Sarah's father had passed away when she was young, so Patricia raised all 3 of them on her own. I will give her credit for that, but she was fiercely protective to the point of being controlling. From the moment I met Patricia, I could tell she did not like me. She made little comments here and there about how I was not manly enough, not tough enough for her daughter. I brushed it off because I loved Sarah, and I thought we could make it work despite her family. Everything seemed fine for the first couple of years. Sure, we had disagreements, but nothing major. Then, about 6 months before everything fell apart, I started noticing changes. Sarah was working late more often. Her phone was always face down on the table. She changed all her passwords. When I asked her about it, she said her company was in the middle of a big project, and she was stressed. I wanted to believe her. I really did. 4 months before the end, things got worse. Sarah started dressing up more when she went to work. New clothes, a different hairstyle, more makeup than usual. She was getting phone calls late at night and would step outside into the yard to take them. I started feeling this weight in my chest, this nagging sense that something was wrong. But I trusted her. I had no proof, and I did not want to be the jealous husband accusing his wife of something without evidence. Then 3 months ago, everything came crashing down. It was a Thursday evening, and I had left work early because a meeting got canceled. I pulled into our driveway and saw a black BMW parked on the street in front of our house. I did not recognize it. I walked inside and heard laughter coming from upstairs. My heart started pounding. I went up the stairs as quietly as I could and opened the bedroom door. There she was, Sarah, with another man. His name was Kyle, and I later found out he was a personal trainer at the gym she had joined 4 months earlier. He was about 29, muscular, and in that moment, he looked just as shocked as I felt. I stood there for maybe 3 seconds. It felt like an hour. Sarah screamed. She tried to say something, tried to explain, but no words could fix what I was seeing. Kyle scrambled to put his clothes on, mumbling apologies that meant absolutely nothing to me. I did not say a word. I just turned around and walked back down the stairs. Sarah chased after me, crying, begging, saying it just happened, that she was so sorry. I grabbed my car keys off the kitchen counter and left. I drove to a cheap motel on the outskirts of town and checked in for the night. I sat on that stiff motel bed staring at the wall. I did not cry. I just felt empty, like someone had scooped out everything inside me and left nothing but a shell. My phone was going crazy. Sarah called 25 times that night. She sent over 50 text messages. I did not read a single one. I did not listen to any voicemails. The next morning, I made a decision. I was not going to engage. I was not going to fight or argue or try to work things out. I called a divorce lawyer, scheduled a consultation, and started putting my plan into action. While Sarah was at work the next day, I went back to the house and packed up my personal belongings. Clothes, laptop, important documents, a few items that mattered to me. I found a studio apartment close to my office and signed a lease that same afternoon. Before I left the house for the last time, I took off my wedding ring and left it sitting on the kitchen table. Then I blocked Sarah's number. I blocked her on every social media platform. I changed my email password and created a new email address she did not know about. When she showed up at my workplace trying to find me, I had already informed security not to let her in. Within a week, my lawyer had drafted and filed divorce papers. They were sent to Sarah by certified mail. Sarah tried everything. She called my dad in Florida, but I had already talked to him and explained the situation. She reached out to my friends, but I had given them a heads up too. When none of that worked, she started posting on social media. She painted herself as the victim, saying I had abandoned her without explanation. She made it sound like I was some heartless monster who just walked out on his wife for no reason. She never mentioned Kyle. She never mentioned the affair. She just crafted this narrative where I was the bad guy. And that is when her family got involved. It started 2 weeks after I left. Patricia, Sarah's mother, called me from a number I did not recognize. I picked up without thinking. Big mistake. She immediately started screaming at me through the phone, calling me a coward, heartless, every name she could think of. She demanded I go back to Sarah, that I forgive her daughter and fix the marriage. She said Sarah was depressed, that she was suicidal, and it was all my fault. I stayed calm. I told her, your daughter cheated. This marriage is over. Then I hung up and blocked that number too. But Patricia was not done. The following week, David showed up at my workplace. He waited for me in the parking lot after my shift ended. When I walked to my car, he stepped in front of me. David was a big guy, over 6 feet tall, broad shoulders from years of construction work. He was trying to intimidate me. He told me I needed to man up, that I was acting like a child, and that I owed it to Sarah to take responsibility. I looked at him and said, I am not the one who cheated. Leave me alone. He shoved me. I did not shove back. I just stood there. Security noticed what was happening and came over. They escorted David off the property, and I filed a police report for harassment. Then Thomas got involved. He was drunk when he sent me threatening messages on Facebook. The messages were aggressive, saying I would regret what I did, that I had made a big mistake. I took screenshots of everything and sent them to my lawyer. My lawyer immediately drafted a cease and desist letter and sent it to Patricia, David, and Thomas, warning them that any further contact would result in legal action. But they did not stop. Over the next few weeks, the harassment escalated. Patricia started a campaign on Facebook. She wrote a long post claiming I had abandoned Sarah when she was sick. She did not mention the affair, of course. She just painted me as the villain who walked out on his vulnerable wife. David shared the post and tagged mutual friends. Some people who did not know the full story started asking me questions. I did not respond. I refused to engage in their circus. Sarah kept up her own narrative online. She posted old wedding photos with captions like, "I miss my husband," and wrote vague status updates about husbands who leave without reason. Her friends rallied around her, commenting with support and throwing insults my way. None of them knew the truth. Sarah kept the affair a secret. She let everyone believe I was the monster. Then things got even worse. Someone called my company's HR department claiming I was abusive and unstable. HR called me into a meeting, and I brought copies of all the police reports documenting the harassment from Sarah's family. I explained the situation calmly and factually. HR was understanding and supportive. They assured me they would not tolerate any further attempts to interfere with my work. Meanwhile, Patricia and David went to the old neighborhood where Sarah still lived. They knocked on neighbors' doors, telling anyone who would listen that I had abandoned my wife. Some neighbors believed them. When I went back to the house to pick up a few remaining items, I could feel their judgmental stares. I did not try to explain myself. I just grabbed what I needed and left. By the 10th week, I thought maybe things were calming down. I was wrong. That Friday night, the night I mentioned at the beginning, I was sitting on my couch watching basketball and eating pizza. My new apartment was peaceful. I had a nice view of the river, and for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Then came the pounding on my door. It was not a polite knock. It was aggressive, angry. I looked through the peephole and saw all four of them: Patricia, David, Thomas, and Sarah. They had found my new address. I still do not know how. Maybe they followed me from work. Maybe they got it from someone we both knew. It did not matter. They were there. I opened the door just a crack and stood in the doorway. Patricia immediately started yelling, "You cannot just abandon your wife like this." David stepped forward. "Come out here and face us like a man." Thomas was clearly drunk, swaying on his feet, slurring insults at me. Sarah stood behind them crying, but she did not say anything. I stayed calm. I told them, "You need to leave. Now." Patricia refused. "We are not leaving until you fix this mess." David tried to push the door open, but I held it firm. I warned them I would call the police if they did not leave immediately. Thomas responded by throwing an empty beer can at my door. By now, neighbors were coming out to see what was happening. One of my neighbors, an older man named Mr. Henderson, walked over and asked if I needed help. I nodded. He stood nearby, a silent witness to what was happening. I pulled out my phone and called 911. I told the dispatcher there were 4 people at my door refusing to leave, threatening me, and creating a disturbance. The police arrived about 15 minutes later. Patricia and David were still shouting. Thomas had sat down on my front step, too drunk to stand. The officers asked what was going on. Patricia tried to explain that I was a terrible husband who had abandoned his wife, but the officers did not care about the personal drama. They told the family they were on private property and needed to leave immediately. David started arguing with the officers, which was a mistake. They warned him that if he did not leave, he would be arrested for trespassing and disturbing the peace. Patricia kept yelling, but eventually they all started walking away. Before she left, Patricia turned back and shouted, "This is not over, Jackson." But it was over. At least the part where I let them push me around was over. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I had recorded everything on my doorbell camera. The yelling, the threats, Thomas throwing the beer can, all of it. I also had the police report from the night before. My lawyer reviewed the evidence and suggested we file for restraining orders against Patricia, David, and Thomas. We went to court the following week. I presented the video footage, the police reports, and the threatening messages from earlier. The judge granted temporary restraining orders for all three of them. They were not allowed within 100 yards of me, my home, or my workplace. If they violated the order, they would be arrested. At the same time, my lawyer accelerated the divorce proceedings. We had clear evidence of Sarah's infidelity. My doorbell camera at the old house had also captured footage of Sarah bringing Kyle into our home multiple times over several months. In Oregon, we could file for a fault-based divorce, which meant Sarah's infidelity could impact the division of assets. Since we did not have children and the house was jointly owned, I had significant leverage. I also made another decision. Up until that point, I had stayed silent. I had not defended myself publicly. I had not explained my side of the story. But after Sarah's family showed up at my door after months of harassment and lies, I decided enough was enough. I was not going to let them control the narrative anymore. I wrote a detailed post on my personal Facebook page. I explained everything. I told the truth about Sarah's affair, about how I had discovered it, and about the harassment I had endured from her family. I did not post explicit photos or videos, but I did include copies of the police reports with sensitive information redacted. My tone was calm, factual, and straightforward. I was not trying to humiliate Sarah. I was trying to protect my reputation and set the record straight. The response was overwhelming. Friends who had been confused by Sarah's posts suddenly understood what had really happened. Several mutual friends reached out to apologize for believing her version of events. Some even admitted they had been manipulated by her stories. Sarah tried to defend herself in the comments, but it was too late. The truth was out, and no amount of spin could change it. Patricia and David tried to fight back on social media, but their credibility was shot. People started commenting on Patricia's old posts, questioning her version of events. The support Sarah had been getting dried up almost overnight. Her narrative collapsed. At work, my colleagues rallied around me. Once they knew the full story, they were even more supportive. My boss pulled me aside and told me if I needed anything, the company had my back. The neighbors at my old house, the ones who had been giving me judgmental looks, started to understand what had really happened. Some even reached out to apologize. Mr. Henderson, my neighbor at the new apartment, became a good friend. He checked in on me regularly and made sure I was doing okay. 4 months after I left Sarah, the divorce was finalized. Because it was a fault-based divorce, I received 60% of the proceeds from the sale of our house. Sarah also had to pay a portion of my legal fees. There was no alimony since the marriage was short and she was at fault. I walked away with my dignity intact and my finances in good shape. As for Sarah's family, the consequences were real. Patricia's restraining order was extended for a full year. Her reputation in the community took a serious hit. People who had known her for years started to see her differently. Sarah's relationship with her mother became strained because Sarah blamed Patricia for making everything worse. David's restraining order also lasted a year. His employer found out about the incident because police reports are public record. His boss was not happy about an employee harassing someone and getting police involved. David received a formal warning at work and was told any future behavior like that would result in termination. Thomas already had a history of trouble, and this incident just added to it. He had another mark on his record for disturbing the peace, and his drinking problem only got worse. Sarah lost the most. She lost a stable, loving husband. Kyle, the personal trainer she had the affair with, wanted nothing to do with her once the drama started. Her reputation was ruined. She had to move out of our house and into a smaller, cheaper apartment. Her relationship with her family was tense. And most importantly, she had to live with the consequences of her choices. As for me, I came out ahead. I kept my dignity. I stood up for myself. I refused to be a victim. And I learned that sometimes the best response to toxic people is no response at all. Until they cross a line, and then you bring the full weight of the law down on them. The months after the divorce were strange. I felt empty at first, but not sad. It was more like I had been carrying this heavy weight for so long that I did not know what to do without it. I had gotten used to being part of a couple, used to considering someone else in every decision. Now suddenly, I was on my own again. But slowly things started to change. I moved into a nicer one-bedroom apartment with a view of the river. I decorated it the way I wanted. No compromises, no discussions about which couch to buy or what color to paint the walls. It was all mine. I started going to the gym regularly, not to impress anyone, just to feel better. I reconnected with old friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. I joined a local basketball league and met new people who did not know anything about my past. It was refreshing. Work got better too. 6 months after the divorce, I was promoted. I had been putting in extra hours and focusing on my career in a way I had not been able to when I was dealing with the chaos at home. I took on new projects, learned new skills, and attended conferences I had skipped in the past. I even traveled solo for the first time, took a trip to Colorado, went hiking, and discovered I actually enjoyed my own company. I started to realize how much I had given up in my marriage. Not big things, but small things that added up. Hobbies I stopped pursuing because Sarah was not interested. Friends I stopped seeing because she did not like them. Parts of myself I had quietly set aside to keep the peace. Now I was rediscovering those parts, and it felt good. I learned something important through all of this. Walking away was not weak. Ghosting Sarah and refusing to engage with her or her family was not cowardly. It was self-preservation. It was protecting my mental health from people who wanted to drag me into their chaos. Silence is a powerful tool. Sometimes the best response is no response at all. I also learned about self-respect. I did not owe Sarah a second chance. I did not owe her family an explanation. I did not owe anyone anything except myself. Choosing to walk away from betrayal was not giving up. It was choosing me. And that was the right choice. Healing does not happen overnight. There were days when I felt angry, days when I replayed everything in my mind and wondered if I could have seen the signs earlier. But those days became fewer and fewer. Eventually, I stopped thinking about Sarah altogether. I stopped checking to see if she was posting on social media. I stopped caring what her family thought of me. I let it all go. Now, when I stand on my balcony and watch the sunset over the river, I think about those 3 years of marriage as a lesson, not a mistake. I learned what I will and will not tolerate. I learned the importance of boundaries. I learned that some people will never take responsibility for their actions, and that is okay. It is not my job to fix them. Sometimes the best revenge is not revenge at all. It is living well, moving forward, and never looking back. Because the people who tried to destroy you, they are still stuck in the same place fighting battles that do not matter anymore. And you are free. So if you have ever been in a situation where someone betrayed you, where their family came after you, where people tried to paint you as the villain, let me ask you this. What would you have done differently? Would you have stayed and tried to work it out, or would you have walked away like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video with someone who might need to hear it. Sometimes people need to know they are not alone, that walking away is okay, that choosing yourself is not selfish. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helped you in some way. Remember, you deserve respect, you deserve honesty, and you deserve peace. Do not settle for anything less. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.